So we are going to look at some of the advanced functionality in BuildStockQuery. So this is available in the advanced users notebook. First step, import BuildStockQuery object and the mapped column. This is an advanced functionality which we'll look at a little bit later. And execution ID is a custom type that indicates the ID of an Athena query execution. So after the run object is initialized, one advanced functionality is that you can pass a get query only equals true as an additional argument to most of the function in BuildStockQuery. And when you do that, instead of actually running the query in Athena and returning the pandas data frame, it will return the query string. And you can actually copy this query string and go to your Athena console, paste the string and run it to get the result. This is super useful for debugging purpose. If you are like working on a complex query or something that's not working, you can get the query only and then try to debug based on that. The other advanced functionality is provided from the mapped column. So ResStock has 5 different building types: mobile home, single family detached, single family attached, multifamily 2 to 4 units, and multifamily 5+ units. Let's say you want to aggregate the result and group by building type, but you only want to have 3 building types: single family, mobile home, and multifamily. You can do that using, you could also do it after you get the result from the query and then do the grouping in the pandas data frame. But sometimes, especially for large volume of data, it's more efficient to do the grouping at the database level so that you don't need to download as much data. It reduces the volume of data that you need to download and it speeds up the query. So map column will let you do that. For this, first step is to define the mapping. So mobile home maps to MS, single family detached maps to SF, and single family attached also maps to SF, and the multifamily maps to MF. And once you have the mapping, you get the column in the database that you want to use as the key for mapping. So in this case, it's the building type. And once you have that, you create the mapped column by passing the name of the mapped column and mapping dictionary and the key column. And in group by, you can use the new mapped column as you would use any other column. So for example, in this case, we could technically add state as another group by column, and it will group by the state and the new mapped building type. Similarly, another example of mapped column here. So the other advanced usage is sometimes what you can do is, instead of running the query in Athena, you just create the query string first, and then you can then pass that query string to the execute function later to get the result. The benefit of doing this is that instead of running queries one after the other, you can actually collect a bunch of queries in a list and then pass it all at once using the submit batch query. And when you do that, all of these queries will be running in parallel in Athena, and that way you can get them completed much faster. So here when you do the query report, you see that 2 queries are pending, and now if you do it again, you'll see that they have been completed. And you can also get the result of batch query using the get batch query result function. And if you do the combine true, the results of 2 queries are concatenated together. So this section is for the first query and this section is for the second query. So what was the difference between first query and second query? It's the same query, but we could make it different. And if you, so this returns a data frame, but if you do combine as false, what you get is a list of data frames. So both of these two of these data frames are returned separately as 2 different data frames. The other advanced functionality is that when you call the execute, there is an optional argument called run async. So when you do run async equals true, it immediately returns a future object. So you can submit one query after the other instead of using the batch query function, and that effectively has the same effect in that the queries run in parallel, but you don't have to deal with the complications of batch query. And you can get the result of the query by calling the asPandas function on the future object. You can also get the query output location in S3. So whenever you run a query in Athena, the results are saved as a CSV file in the query results folder, and this function lets you find that address for a given query execution ID, and you only get an execution ID when you do a asynchronous run. You can also get the query status, and sometimes if you have submitted a lot of async queries, you might be interested in seeing what queries are running, and you can also stop those queries if you want to resubmit queries after fixing some bugs.